Hi, David Odell here with OdellCompleteConcrete. This is first day on the job. It's a patio area that we're going to be putting in here. We're going to be doing some stamped concrete and a fire pit. We're going to make this all concrete. We'll leave a small area for a planter. We've got it painted out on the ground, kind of some ideas, although it did change once we started trying to fit in a gazebo area and sitting area. We changed it up and took out one of the planters and just made it a little smaller. So here's what we start with elevations. We got the existing side yard concrete, and then we have an existing patio elevation. Now the first thing, we know that the water has to get from the backyard to the front, so this concrete in the backyard has to be higher than the side yard. And when we did shoot it in with the laser, there was only a 1 inch slope, very little for this whole area to drain, although it will flow out before it builds up. So it's gonna work. It's just gonna be really slow moving on a drainage situation. That paint in the middle there is the fire pit. Also, you see that fan there? That worked out real nice. Keeps the dust down really good. We're using just a little 35-pound. That's a Makita clay spade on there. Now these are the students from the classroom. There's 27 of them. And they're all going to be learning how to dig and how to do block, a little bit of masonry, concrete, and some other different techniques. Hi, David Odell here with OdellCompleteConcrete. We're on the job site, and you know, it's getting about that time where it gets real hot and some people can get overheated pretty easily. So I came up with this idea, and it's an outdoor misting fan. It's got 5 misters on it. It comes with a replaceable nozzle in case one gets clogged, but this is going to be a big help, especially with, you know, the guys that are new to working outdoors. You know, if they're going to be getting overheated, they can sit over here in the cooling station. And what's nice about this is all metal construction. It's not plastic, so it's gonna hold up pretty well. The fan blades. Another thing nice about it is the cost. It's real affordable. Also, you can get a coupon discount code through the link in the description department, how to get to purchase this, and by using the code you'll get a percentage off. Anyway, that's what you want on the back patio to stay cool. Look at that. Look how that blows real nicely. It's like a cool ocean breeze. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for the big job. So here we are. We're going to use the self-leveling laser. That's what we're going to use to get our grade. And what I'm showing everyone right now, basically how to use the laser level, how to establish your grade. And since we only had 1 inch slope, it was really easy to do with the laser level. I only had to really set the laser level at one time. I didn't have to adjust it for various elevation changes. It was just one and done. And then we just kept sticking it on the dirt as we went out. We have 27 shovels going, 3 wheelbarrows, and a big dumpster in the front yard. We were able to fill that up with this many people in less than 2 hours. The dust that it generates too when you have that many shovels working at one time is pretty amazing. It was like a little mini tornado back here. So that mister fan kind of knocked down a lot of the dust as we did this job. We found a drain line here. This drain we determined comes from the raised planters, and it doesn't go anywhere. It just dead-ended, and it was even capped off at the other end. So we removed it. The only way to make it go somewhere would be to go out, remove concrete through the side yard and driveway and get it to the curb, but it hasn't seen water in there, so these raised planters aren't a problem. I mean, they don't have concrete underneath them, so the water will just go straight down. The only thing that's going to hit those raised planters is rain anyway. These are all the students from Hope Builders in Santa Ana. Today was the hard day for them. That was the dig day. Then we're going to do another day out here with some block for the fire pit. We're going to do a little stucco on the fire pit, and we're going to do a brick cap. And that's something all the students will participate in, and they'll all get a chance at buttering up some blocks and laying a few down here and there. And this is really a part 1 of a 6-part series, so there's going to be a lot of activity with this school and different things in the classroom, in the on the job sites. Now we're doing layout right now on the fire pit location, and also we're going to end up trying to get elevation as well for the block. We want to make sure that the footing is below the slab. That way we can get a good 4 inches of concrete over the footing. So that's the first thing we did, was establish the height of the slab. Then we went down 4 inches, and then that becomes the height of the footing. Since we wanted 12-inch height and we have 2 block high and it's 16 inches, we were able to bury 4 inches of the first block, and that gave us good coverage for the slab over the footing. Now here's the brick that we're using. Initially we had some red flash, which was going to match the existing one, but then we ended up going with something a little bit darker. Now on the stucco of this fire pit, we mixed in with the mortar mix a little bit of clay inside and outside of the block that we would put on there, and the clay helps prevent the concrete from heating up. When there is a fire going inside there, the concrete won't get too hot and pop. So if you have a fire burning just on concrete alone, directly on concrete, it can pop. You'll notice that especially when it's on wood and you're burning wood, it pops and it flies. So this has clay mixed in with the mortar, and that prevents it from getting too hot. We have the rebar here on 2-foot centers. We have a block cap as the border all the way around the perimeter. That was put in by a previous contractor, and they basically put it in level, so it was put in really well, and we were able to use that as a guideline for the new concrete slab. This is really sandy soil, so it really absorbs the water, and you get good compaction without doing a whole lot to it, because it is sand. Sand typically is at 100% compaction as soon as it hits the ground. Now this is color concrete that we're doing here. It's a lot darker right now when it's wet, before the concrete's cured out. So when this is cured out, it'll be about the color of this flagstone right here on the adjoining patio, right on the other side of that brick border. We'll end up getting that light. So we have all the rebar up on dobies. We've got a 12-foot rod board, and that's just a straight 2x4. I picked it up a little bit when I put my chalk lines on that fire pit from wall to patio. I picked it up maybe a ½ inch in the middle there, so water would drain away from the fire pit. The low point really is in this new planter that we created, which at some point may need a French drain system in there. You could do something like a 3-foot by 3-foot by 3-foot area filled with gravel, drainage fabric, perforated pipe that will dump a lot of water, and it will percolate very quickly laterally and downwards. All the students ended up getting a shirt from me, and I got a shirt from them as well. Plus, I also got a hammer. They gave me a nice hammer. Because they didn't like the steel shank hammer. Apparently, there's too much vibration in it. Because what happens, I guess, you'll get maybe carpal tunnel in your wrist, or maybe some other joint problems because of steel shanked hammers. I don't use hammers that much, you know, but it's always nice to know those little details. That's your 10-inch wide, half-inch radius walking edger. Now I got my 2 rod boards there, double stacked, and that gave me a bridge to get across to the fire pit. And now what I can do is get all my joints in from that point. Off the corners like that is especially where you want to put joints. Any corners, inside corners, that's where concrete typically is going to crack from. Normally it would like to crack at a 45-degree angle out of those inside corners, but it doesn't look that good when you do a joint that way. So we're just going to go straight both directions and hope they work. But we got the funny float out there, moving it around, and that's the fiberglass. This joiner is 3/4 of an inch deep, and it has a half-inch radius on it. The hand joiners match it, which is important that you have matching tools from your walking to your hand tools. Because typically when you start using your hand tools, the concrete's pretty hard, and if your hand joiner doesn't match your walking tools, you're going to be struggling. Here's your first pass on the sliders, and the reason he's on that outside edge is because that's where the concrete normally dries. It dries from the outside edges inward. And not only that, it's up against block, or it could have been up against wood or something else that absorbs the moisture out of the concrete. So your edges always dry the quickest. So that's what you want to hit first. We did get one 45-degree angle joint off of that fire pit, and it made sense there because the sections were still about the right size. Now here's the liquid release that I'm using for this is for the stamp. Sometimes I used to use mineral spirits as liquid release agent, but I mean it's illegal to buy or sell in California, which I just learned, so I had to go get this stuff, and it's a little more expensive, but it is designed for this. So that means if you have a mess up when you're using this type of liquid release, there's something you don't like about how the stamp looks, or maybe someone stepped in it, you can just trowel it back out, re-stamp it. And that's what makes it so easy when you're using a liquid clear release. You can actually do touch-ups. Now if you're using a powder as your release agent and your secondary color, touch-ups are it is what it is once it gets stamped. There's no repair. This is a Belgium slate seamless texture. It's kind of a cross between the old granite and, say, a Roman. Old granite has the deep veins in it This has some veins in it, this particular texture, but just not quite as deep. And then it's similar to the Roman slate, but it's just a little bit more going on. So it's like in the medium range of textures. That's what it looks like after it's stamped out. And what you pull your forms out, take a look at everything, get your final shots, and just let it cure out for about 30 to 60 days and see what you got. There's the pattern when you get a close-up on it, and just by the nature of this having it stamped, it will actually model or two-tone up over time, because sediments, dirt, stuff settling into low areas, you'll end up with a two-tone thing that looks pretty good. Now this color was mixed into the concrete, so that's all the way through the concrete. When you do mix-ins, you can only go darker than what the base color is. Now if you're going to do throw-on colors, you can actually go lighter than the base color of concrete. So that's the advantage of throw-ons. You can go lighter, whereas integrals you can't go lighter. Unless of course you change your main ingredient, cement. Instead of gray cement, you use white cement. Then I guess you could change the color. But other than that, you're going to be stuck with pretty much throw-on to get a lighter color. There's your classroom shot. And remember, this is just the first part of a 6-part series. Now, some of those guys are going to end up, maybe one or two of them will call me and get see if I got some work, and maybe I'll hire a couple of them. But we'll see how it goes after they graduate. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned.